I was just looking at your beads behind you. How many beads do you have behind you?
Millions, probably, because there's lots of seed beads too, so the tiny ones will run into the millions.
Nice stash. The first time I came across your work was at the summer exhibition in 2017, when you had a beautiful sculptural Amy Winehouse piece. And then last year at the Society for Embroidered Work exhibition, you had a beautiful selection of celebrity portraits. What is it about the celebrity images that inspires your art?
So I'm drawn to celebrities because I'm really interested in their fan bases and just how much they love these people that they've probably never actually met. So it's looking at how strangers are effectively influencing these people and the things they do and the things they listen to and the things they buy. So people like, maybe not so much Amy Winehouse, but Lady Gaga, they've got, she does her own makeup, you can buy so much that's related to her, you could kit your whole house out. And it's looking at what about her makes her fans, well, monsters, so devoted. So doing her as a religious icon really sort of looks at, so previously we have religious artifacts, everyone go to church on Sunday, but now they're worshipping on Instagram and TikTok and things like that instead. So it's a nice way to play with the iconic imagery, and also bringing some of her fan base to my work is another great thing. So in every portrait, in their halos, within the charms, there'll be some that are specific to either things she's done in her life. So, for example, with my Catherine piece, there's things that relate to George and her other children. For Lady Gaga, there's a few things that link to things she's worn. So there's little things that any monsters will see, things from even actual lines of songs that the vast majority of people will just see a charm. But if they're little monsters, we'll see a few more sort of things that point towards certain songs or certain albums. And it just gives it's a nice little bit of fun. That means that people can see a work 2 or 3 times and still find new things in it.
And every bead on your work is hand stitched, isn't it?
So yeah, so every bead and charm is now hand stitched. Previously I had glued occasionally, especially on sculptures, like underarms and things can be really tricky, but now it's really important to me to be as eco-friendly as possible and avoid all glues and plastics. So any plastic used is reused. So I'll reuse plastic beads and things, but I won't use any glues unless I absolutely have to. So sometimes on my sculptures, a wooden framework, and I will have to use a little bit of plastic glue there just to firm everything up. But normally now everything is textiles and everything is hand stitched. Normally every bead is stitched at least twice. Charms are normally anchored down 2 or 3 times just to ensure that during delivery and things that they don't move about too much.
And what did it feel like to have a piece in the summer exhibition?
So I've applied for the summer exhibition a few times, but 2017 was the first year I'd got in, and I was actually chosen by the BBC to be followed by their cameras, so there was a lot of extra pressure and it was all very new, and it didn't really occur to me until after I'd filmed and got through that actually if I'd been filmed and I hadn't got through, it would have been pretty heartbreaking. I don't think I really realised until I walked into that building just how much it meant to me. I just seeing your work in such amazing surroundings with so many incredible artists in the same room as you is quite overwhelming. It's definitely a highlight of my career so far, and every year since I will still be applying, and I really hope to get in again soon.
Was that the year that Grayson Perry curated it?
No, it was Eileen Cooper. Grayson Perry was the year afterwards.
That was it, yeah.
I got the chance to speak to Eileen actually, and she said that as soon as she saw my work, she was determined to have it in. So all the through what used to be 3 different points at which your work could be chucked out, I was always actually a certainty for her. Obviously, you never have a clue that that's actually what's going on. You don't know until just a few days before the exhibition opens if you're actually in or not, if you've made the final hang. And with my work, it tends to stick out quite a lot, so it doesn't often work in group exhibitions. It normally looks not quite too bright, it just looks too distinct and doesn't really fit in group shows very well. So what helped it was being a sculpture, it could be on a plinth, and that gave it a bit of distance from everybody else. So I came to embroidery actually through printing and painting. So I describe my embroidery as thread painting because I pretty much do with thread what I used to do with acrylic. So I'm really, really careful with colour choices, and everything has to be done in daylight. It's really important to me that really gradual, almost indiscernible colour changes happen to ensure you get enough realism in the picture, which again is what a lot of artists do with paint. What's great about thread though is, okay, you've got brush strokes and paint, but with thread you can be much more linear about and with lines. So a lot of the face shape actually is coming from the shadows between the thread strings. So you've got to bear all that in mind when you choose the colours. So colours have to be chosen often quite lighter or brighter, because as you overlap the thread you're creating shadows all the time, so you have to compensate for that. So I tend to go like a degree or two lighter than what it actually is, to make sure the colours are accurate when it's actually seen as a whole. And what's great about thread painting is that you can give it's playing with the abstract and the realism. So you go up close and you just see the stitching and it doesn't make any sense, but then you can come back and it all just merges together beautifully. And I love playing with that, particularly with the star backgrounds I do. And it's again about being able to go back to view an artwork 1 or 2, 3 or 4 times, and you'll still see new things every time. And that's although it takes a lot of time, that's why it's worth investing that time in embroidery, because you just can't recreate that in paint.
I just want to talk about some of your materials, because I think anybody watching this must be thinking you must have the most amazing stash of jars and jars of beads.
So I've got behind me about half of my collection. I do it by colour, and I have 5 of each. So when I buy beads, I obviously buy in bulk, and 5 go in a jar, and then the rest go into sort of my other hidden storage. So when I start to get low on a colour, I can top it up. I also get lots of donations of beads and donations of people's old costume jewellery and things. So my collection just cannot be replicated, and it's that helps make my work so unique. I've also got lots of beads and things that mean something to me. Like I've used my old school badges in work, and family have donated things, and I've inherited a few things recently. So it's adding a literal part of my life into my work. So I don't actually use sketchbooks. I do actually have one sketchbook from when I was at school. And I just when I find images, I'll have a little idea. I jot it down in my original sketchbook, which is about this thick now. It's just layers and layers of photos and things from TV and magazines and things. But now, while I'm sewing one piece, my head is already thinking about the next. So I've normally got, by the time I finish one piece, I've got a really clear idea of where I'm going to go with the next one. So I will take some images that I need for that, and I'll create a composite, because I've got to be really careful. Working with celebrities, I've got to be really careful on copyright. I've got to ensure that no part of my work comes from one single photo. It all comes from about a dozen photos in the end. And then it's, I always do the eyes first. And once I've stitched the eyes, I can start to get an idea of whether the sizing is right, because with beadwork, some people are more recognisable at smaller sizes. But I'm finding men have to be much bigger than women, whereas people like Amy Winehouse or Lady Gaga, you can go quite small. They've got quite distinctive faces, and obviously Amy had the beehive. But for men, I have to go much bigger. So once I've done the eye, if I can't see any recognition, then I have to kind of start again. But assuming that's gone right, then the piece just tends to flow. I can only do it in daylight for most of it, but back then bits I can do at night time or in the evening. So the piece normally sort of comes out from the middle and comes out, but sometimes because of constraints of childcare and things, I might have to do a lot of nighttime work for bits. So occasionally the background might be done before the face is actually fully finished. So this is my Catherine needle painting. So it took 9 months in the end to finish her. And so in this image, she's juggling the lifehood of a modern woman. So we've got these shoes to represent the children. We've got social media and how she's portrayed by the media. She's always got to be thinking of how she's being seen. We've got her, obviously, her Duchess tiara. there's also the things that every woman has to cope with, which is expected to look a certain way, and so the artificial rainbow rose represents that. So we've got also Kensington Palace in the background, but also the more rural lifestyle that she's actually used to, and she's actually used to live not far from where her parents lived. It's very rural there, and it's very, very different to London, but so you can understand why they moved back to Norfolk, because that would so much better fit with how she's grown up and the family life she had, and understandably the family life she wants to give her kids, being away from all the media glare. So at the moment I'm working on a portrait of Beyonce. I thought it was really important to show her with her natural hair, so the afro is proving quite challenging, but it's been really fun to stitch. It's taking a long time, but I think it'll be worth it. With this piece, her eyes were obviously done first, and actually because of lockdown and childcare constraints, actually a lot of the outside has been done first, because I haven't had much time with natural light. But I'm taking quite a long time with this one, because every single hair is so important to get the actual oval curly hair effect, because it's such a big part of her and how she's portraying herself currently. So that piece is called Lizzo. She accidentally became my lockdown project. I started her just before lockdown, and then suddenly she was my companion while we were stuck in the house for so many months. It was a really fun piece to do. Like, she's quite a fun, vibrant character, so I've used lots of extra quirky charms and beads in that one, and it was nice to work with such bright colours while everything was feeling very constrained and dull apart from that. And after homeschooling could be quite tough at times, it was nice in the evening once the boys were asleep to sew and sort of work our way through it, and actually it made lockdown go quicker, I think.
So are there any artists or embroiderers that have influenced the style of work that you create?
So there's been one artist who had a huge effect on me when I was a student, and that was seeing James Rosenkist's retrospective at the Guggenheim in New York, and that exhibition has always stuck with me. The scale that he was working at and the colours just never left me, and made me realise why I wanted to take my work. Before that point I was working a bit more impressionist style, actually, and still colour, but quite muted colours, and not doing the celebrities so much. But after seeing his work, I've kind of redefined where I wanted to go as an artist. I still regularly visit places like Gloucester Cathedral and look at the old stained glass. I'm quite influenced by that because it's just so vibrant and it's quite graphic, and it still feels, even though it was done hundreds of years ago, a lot of it still feels very contemporary. So I like to use those, and the lines of lead work actually really work well with beading. There are some embroidery artists that influence me, but a lot of them are so precise and the stitching is so neat. That's not something I could ever replicate with the way I work and my style. So yeah, there's probably like hundreds of artists who are sort of feeding into my subconscious all the time.
And is your art for sale?
So all my art is for sale. Sometimes it's made for a specific exhibition, but once that's finished, it's normally available. Also, with embroidery being such a time-consuming way of working, my pieces can be quite expensive, but I also produce prints and cards. And it's actually through the prints and cards that enables my artistic practice to be sustainable financially, and is ensuring that this can move into full-time work now. Every small card you buy actually contributes to my bead collection and ensuring that I can still afford to produce the big pieces. And so when I was in my master's course, I was approached by a gallery, and through them I got to do my first international shows. So at the time of my actual graduate show in London, there was barely anything there, and a lot were photos because all my work was actually in New York. Unfortunately, I never got to go, but actually most of my prints sell to America now. So once lockdown is over, I'm really going to be pushing my work over there. And hopefully next time my work is up in America, I'll get to go myself, which would be brilliant.
It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you today.
And likewise, I've really enjoyed talking to you.